Hi, I'm Sarah. So I'm going to kick it off with an overview of WTF producers even do, because I feel like a lot of people in the game industry really don't know, and people outside the game industry definitely don't know what we do. So who here has participated in a group project in their life? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. All right. I'm an interactive speaker, so I'm going to call on someone who has their hand up. Who has their hand up and also wants to tell me how it went?
Sucks.
It sucks? So by the end, did you feel like this? Maybe even worse, you felt like this? Well, that kind of explains what a producer's job is. Our job is for you to come out of your project feeling like you're leaving the fire and flames behind. You survived it together as a group, and you produced something that was super freaking awesome. So who am I? My name is Sarah Sands. I'm a necromancer. I'm a producer. I'm 33. I've spent about 5 years doing project management across tech and video games. I have 3 production credits on indie games, but I've worked on over 20 projects total that I can and can't talk about. So some of them I might have to be like, I did a thing, but you don't get to know about anything I did. I worked at Akupara Games, DirecTV, and Nike. Those are the 3 larger companies that I worked for. When I was working at Akupara, I worked on Desert Child. Check it out. It is on Steam. It's on PS4, Switch, yada, yada, yada. That's my plug. Chicken Assassin, did the porting on that, and then production credit. Created the project plan for porting Rain World. Whoop, whoop. And then production credits, I did a bunch of Rift levels for Seal the Deal. So if you've played that expansion, the super fun underwater level, that was mine. So there's going to be stuff on the screen I'm going to sort of talk about and sort of just kind of go off on my own tangents. What does a producer even do? This is a question I've gotten a lot, especially from friends and family. My formal title at work is Scrum Master, which gets me a lot more inappropriate questions I don't want to talk about. But for a producer, the main thing is you own the project or a significant portion of the project. You're the person that if things go great, you get probably no credit. If things go bad, you're going to get yelled at. You're going to be responsible for assembling and managing teams of engineers, designers, and artists. So a lot of people come from tech backgrounds. They're like, oh, I totally got this. And then you're like, oh my God, fragile artist egos. How do I deal with this? It's a big deal. You're going to be outlining, scheduling, and tracking tasks. That's kind of the project management portion of it. It's all the things nobody wants to do on their own, and it's super valuable to have one person doing all of it. You also get to be that guiding light that ensures the project is heading in the right direction. That's a really big one. Working in games, it's really easy to get lost in scope creep. It's really easy for people to have really fun ideas that come up, and you're like, holy crap, I love it, but then you're like, we have 4 weeks left, we can't put it in. I'm sorry, I love you, I love your idea, but maybe a DLC, and then you have DLC 2 weeks after the game comes out. So, a day in the life. What I do on a daily basis varies wildly from day to day. Some days I'm leading giant meetings with 40+ people. Some days I'm sitting down with designers, I'm coaching them on how to actually break their ideas down into tasks that make sense instead of just giant, big, beautiful ideas, which designers are super great at. Working through code problems. This is kind of my specialty. I'm a big QA and engineer person. Daily basis, I'm problem solving with engineers at Nike, making sure that artistic feedback is complete and actionable. You get a lot of feedback, especially from artists and designers that are going to be more vague and not super actionable and just more oh, I don't like the feel, I don't like the taste. You're like, you literally can't taste that. Why did you lick the screen? That's super wrong. Don't do that. Also, this job is the hardest, I think. You're going to be acting as the liaison between stakeholders funding the project and the project team. This can lead to very uncomfortable situations, and you have to be very comfortable saying no, which can be really hard sometimes. So that one there, always highlight, it is not a fun job all the time. Sometimes it's really great, sometimes it's not. And then, oh my God, you will spend so much of your life buried in spreadsheets and in project management software that makes you want to pull your hair out, and then you finally figure it out and you're like, oh, this is it. You spend 2 days on a spreadsheet that gets like 30 seconds of attention in a meeting, but you did it, and you got that pivot table to work. Why are producers important? Manage the iron triangle. Who here has heard of the iron triangle before? Oh, we got a few people. Woo! I'm going to talk about it more on the next slide. We coach the team. This is like a big one for me. I love making sure that people are having not only like a productive time, but a good time working on what we're working on. I want to make sure people aren't working crazy hours every day. I want to make sure you have everything you need to be successful. I don't want you to have to think about what you need when you come in. I want it to just be there. We're master problem solvers. We remove roadblocks so the team can succeed. Every morning in my stand-up, if someone brings something up, if they can't figure it out on their own or it's going to greatly impact their work, I'm on it. That's getting fixed before you need it done. So that's kind of another big one I want to highlight that we do. Again, feedback and guidance on work. That's a big one. Just kind of going through the daily checklist of all the things everybody needs to get done, doing a little bit of QA on it, high level for what the acceptance criteria was for each of the items. Your one source of truth for the direction of the game, kind of talk about that guiding light. And you passionately love and hate spreadsheets. I can't emphasize enough how much time you'll be spending in spreadsheets and tracking of some kind. It's a huge part of the job that I feel like gets glossed over. You need to be tracking everything. It's not going to be just like, oh, we need to deliver some assets. It's going to be like, we need to deliver 32 assets. Here's every single detail about that asset that needs to be delivered, and you're going through and manually checking all of it. So be prepared. So here's the iron triangle. Quality is in the middle. You can always sacrifice quality to extend or shrink down one of the sides. I don't recommend it. Quality should be your main focus. But anytime you modify scope, schedule, you're going to have to modify that budget. If you're going to modify schedule and budget, you're going to have to like shrink those down. Scope's going to have to go down with it. So keep that in mind when you're thinking of, I want to add this great new feature. Well, how much is that going to cost? You get to be the idea squasher, which sometimes feels real bad. So be prepared to give realistic feedback on what that's going to be as a producer. So here's some traits of a good producer. I'm not going to read them all, but is there anything that you guys see, like can think of that's not on here that you would consider a trait of a good producer or leader that you've worked with? Lauren, I know you. She's not a plant, I swear. Oh, positive attitude. That's a really good one. In the back. It's very good. Having a really good memory. I have a terrible memory, so I have a really good log of everything that anybody's told me in passing.
Being able to sort through garbage and throw out things that you don't need to know and tell people what they do need to know and they need to know.
That's a really big one. I wish I had put that on here. Yeah. So a really big one is knowing how to filter through all of the information you're given and pick out the little gems and be able to pass those along. A lot of times you'll be, especially in a meeting with engineers, no offense engineers, but you guys are very in the weeds. So sometimes you just have to be able to pull back and see the big picture and actually glean the most important parts of that 3-hour meeting where you talked about how many blades of grass you need. It's just how it is. The one I always want to highlight is the jack of all trades. Like, I remember growing up thinking, man, I'm not good at anything. Like, I'm not. I've never been an expert in any field. I've always just dabbled across everything. And I learned eventually that that was like actually a really big strength. So that if you're ever feeling like, crap, I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not great at anything, maybe production's for you. All right. And this is my like favorite slide. This is the best and worst part of my job. Like, when you're doing a good job, people don't notice. Everything's just going smoothly, day to day, everything's great, until something goes wrong. It's a really great feeling to be a good producer and get through your day and get through your week and be like, oh, you know, there's only like 2 small dumpster fires this week. Nobody really noticed. It was fine. But like, I've had projects fail. Like, not every project is great. Projects fail. And being able to like get through that and learn from it and take your team through that failure is going to be part of your job. And really, failure is part of learning, and you have to always have that mindset because you're going to have projects that run out of budget, that run out of time, that get dropped by your corporation because the new shiny thing came up and people have been working on it for 9+ months and you have to go and tell them, and maybe you have to let people go. It's hard. So that's, to me, kind of the best and worst part of the job is that you're going to have to deal with things that are really tough. And sometimes it's going to be outside your control, and you just have to learn from it and really help keep that positive attitude that Lauren was talking about throughout it and learn from it. Also, my favorite part is that I only succeed when my team succeeds. I can put 1,000,000 hours in, and I can do my best, and my team can maybe not succeed. And I can put in 0 hours and do absolutely nothing, and maybe my team succeeds. So just kind of keep that in mind that, you know, no matter how much effort you put in, you'll really only be seen as successful when your team succeeds. So keep that kind of in your mind as a producer. It's part of your mantra. It's okay if you fail. It's okay if your team fails. Just try to learn from it. Try to get beyond it. And now I end with questions. Okay, so the question was, you had someone who's worked really hard on a feature or a portion of the game, and then you have to be like, this didn't work, and it has to be thrown out. So that's actually super common, not only in video games, but in my other project management work, where we spend a lot of time on a feature, ends up not going out, not getting put in the release. Maybe testing was too difficult for it. Maybe in the user experience, it just didn't work. Usually when I have to deliver that news, I try to come into the situation with a kind, open heart. It sounds really silly, but I try to bring it up like, hey, here's the reasons why, in a very logical manner, where I say, your feature was really wonderful, compliment sandwich it, here's why, X, Y, Z, and then say, after doing some research or after this happened, we decided to make like this cut from the game or from our project. And then I give all the logical reasons that exist behind it. And I say, but, you know, I would love to talk to you about how we can implement this in a future iteration if possible, or if it's just like straight up, that was trash, we hated it, it was awful. I'll just be like, so we decided to cut it, here's X, Y, and Z. I would love to hear your feedback on how that like feels. And like, I foster really open environments where feelings come like before just like the logical reasons. So I'll be like, how's it feel? Like, do you need to take a day? Do you need some time? Because people's work is super important to them. And I don't feel like, especially in my corporate jobs, like people don't think about it enough. And like, things will get cut for legit stupid reasons. Like, oh, it would be like an extra 10 hours to test that, we're cutting it. And I have to tell someone that. So, compliment sandwich, be honest, be like direct, and always offer like some kind of emotional support towards it.
So with the pictures that you interspersed throughout the presentation, are you trying to imply that working with developers like breeding cats?
Yes. Yes, I am. His question was, with the pictures that I've interspersed, am I trying to say that working with developers is like working with cats? Yes, I also just love cats. So I like to put lots of cats in. At my work, I'm known as the cat lady and the cat presenter. So people always look for them in my presentations.
So how does the role of producer relate to or interact with the role of director?
I don't know if I've ever had a director on any of my games. It's only been producer, so I don't know if I have the information to answer that question.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering if they were maybe the same thing.
Yeah, I know for movies and things like that, usually the director is more on the, like, trying to think of how to say this politically correct. Sometimes people just get that credit if they give any kind of creative input at all. So it's usually more the creative side, and the producer's more the like person who's doing the more actionable things behind the scenes. And I think that was the time for our last question. But I want to say thank you guys so much for coming and for sharing about your group project experiences with me.